Yeah, I have. John and Betsy, you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey Tristan, where's my USB drive access here?
Yeah. They can't.
Hey guys, can you email me your presentation? So many of the minutes.
Sure can.
John and Betsy, give me about 2 minutes. We're just, as you can tell, we don't, the TV crew is not here right now, so I'm working off an owl camera. So just let me get it situated and we'll get started.
Tom, did you?
We are on YouTube, but I'm just gonna have some dead air time, so. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 workshop of the Town of Scarborough, Maine, 5:30 start time. And we'll call this workshop to order. Tom, could you do some quick attendance for us?
Councilor Johnson.
Here.
Councilor Caterina.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Councilor Gleisteen.
Here.
Councilor Clucci.
Here.
Vice Chair Hamel.
Here.
Chair Johnson.
Here. Perfect. For those of you that are watching us on YouTube, we are limited with our technology today, so bear with us. We have a one camera on many of us here in the building. However, this isn't enough to get it on record and to have it on YouTube, and I'm sure we can post it on public access after the fact. And I believe we will be up and running at normal speed by our 7 p.m. regular town council. So with that, the topic of discussion today is there is a contract zone amendment request, or there will be, it's not technically been made yet, by the Divine Brothers in regards to the Beacon project. I'll let them introduce everything, but just to level set where we are, I believe they approached us probably at this point over 6 months ago and said there was some sort of interest in an expansion of the current project, to which we went back and forth rather casually for the last 6 months, working on timing. I believe the request, as it hadn't been official, has kind of gone back and forth on the nature of it. I'll let you guys expand on that a bit. And so here today, just to be clear, this is not part of our contract zone amendment process. This is what I like to call a step 0 workshop, which means we have not triggered anything yet. The developers are here in front of us to essentially gauge our reaction and take our input and our consensus so they can make an informed decision on what they do next. We've done this a couple times. It's been successful. It's given a little bit more of a runway for us and for the public. We thought it'd be best to do it again. So with that, gentlemen, I think I'll turn it over to you guys. I assume that you guys would like to make a presentation before we begin or before we discuss. So we'll have a presentation by you, and then afterwards, we'll just do a Q&A from us, and then we'll see where it heads from there. Okay?
Right.
So with that, I'll pull up your presentation. Might not be as pretty but I'll make it work, so. Do you guys want to skip right to pictures, or? Yeah. Okay.
We'll go first. We'll go. Yep.
So let me share my screen here, and then we will. Okay, it's all yours, and you feel free to direct me on what you would like me to do with the pictures. So.
And do you want me to jump in, or would you
Um,
like to lead?
Why we're here, I guess, Bill, and then
Sure.
I'll just take over from there.
Okay, great. So as noted on the bottom of that slide, this is phase 3, so it's really just an addition to the existing project, which has been really successful. It's 2 buildings that are shown at the top, 24 units each, and then the associated garages. So this is the project that's being looked at now. Like I said, it's really the phase 3 of what's already built out there, and it's going really well. I think the next slide shows an aerial shot. It's a little distorted, but you'll see it's just across the street from what's shown as the dongle parcel. And all the buildings, that's during construction if that photo was taken, so that's not really accurate as to what's there today, but it'll give you a good bird's eye view of what's, excuse me, at that intersection with Cabela's across the street on the west side.
And just so we have our bearings, that is where the 2 buildings would go, where my cursor's circling around.
Yes, and that green, the green and the cleared, that's right, the cleared area. If you want to circle that again.
Yeah, let me,
Yep,
right there,
exactly.
directly across from the dongle parcel,
Exactly.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So, great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Then if you switch to the next slide, it shows what the elevation is. This is just an approximate depiction of what the build out would look like.
One more.
And that's an aerial shot. And the highlighted section is the abutting parcel in the back, sort of towards the south. That's under option. That was being studied at one time and still being studied. It's a more complicated site. But receiving feedback in previous discussions, the decision's been made to go forward with the 48 units along Higas itself and do further work and study on that back parcel. So this slide shows an overview of the financial payments to the town overall, both those that were imposed at the time of the original development approval, so the lower portion of the impact fees associated with the 288 units that's presently there. And the section above shows the property taxes that are paid annually, excuse me, on the property, along with the excise taxes paid on the owners that live there, the residents' motor vehicles. So in total, that's a little over 1.8 million initially upon approval, and then the reoccurring annual payments to the town of about $756,000. So that's what's there now, presently. Just a note at the top, it's a very successful project. There's an ongoing waiting list of folks that would like to get in. There's a lot of traffic study done at the time of the original approval for the 288 units. This whole area, what was called the Gateway development for Cabela's on the western side, and this parcel on the eastern side was issued a traffic movement permit by the DEP in 2007, and it contemplated a whole lot of traffic. And some of that traffic has come, but not enough that would require an additional an amendment to the existing moving permit. So even the 288 units seems to have traffic less than was anticipated. And this additional 48 units still will well be within the MDOT traffic moving permit from 2007. some details there about currently the 288 unit project that's there is at about 60%, 57% AM peak hour, 65% PM peak hour traffic counts. We didn't anticipate at the time that the original project was approved that there'd be a material impact on public safety or schools, and that's borne out to be true. There are about 12 school-age residents currently on the property, and about 9 of those are new students to the school system. So that's a relatively modest number, given the number of units. So this is a slide to show just estimated numbers of what the income stream or the payment stream to the town would be for the 48 additional units. So you'll see property taxes of approximately $100,000 and some excise taxes for motor vehicles that are owned by the residents of about $23,000. So in total, approximately $126,000 of annual payments to the town. And then impact fees, this number is really just a rough approximation based on the impact fees imposed on the original approval of those 288 units. That's just an indication of where those impact fees may land, which would be around $300,000. This is proposed traffic for the increased traffic associated with 48 units. And again, this is well within the existing traffic moving permit. There's expected to be 20, this is based on a trip generation manual. I'm not a traffic engineer, but speaking with traffic engineers that are studying the traffic patterns and impact because of the existing unit and these new units, the existing project and these new units. The traffic counts are supposed to be relatively modest, so it shows 28 during the AM peak hour and 30 during the PM peak hour. Well within the existing moving. Flip through, and again, we think similar demographics of the residents there, given that the amount of units is pretty modest at 48. There's not expected to be any material significant impact on the school system or public safety. Anticipate based on the numbers that are currently there, we expect about 2 new students for the 48 units. This slide just shows what we need in order to make this happen, which this is part, this project was developed as part of a contract zone, as was the Cabela's parcel across the street. So the amendment we bring forward is actually the 9th amendment. There's been a whole lot of work done out there, obviously, to develop the area generally. And this 9th amendment is going to be very similar to the 8th amendment that allowed the original project. It's going to ask for relief from the mixed use requirement of commercial and residential otherwise required there, as well as relief from the density requirements of the zone, the Heights Parkway zone itself. And then the latter part of this slide just really shows the process that's outlined in the town zone. There's a joint review by the planning board and town council, public hearing, we'll receive feedback, hopefully based on public comments or thoughts that you may have. And then it goes through the normal planning board review and approval process. The approval is only preliminary until the contract zone amendment is in place. And that process goes through a first read and second read for the town council. So that is a brief overview, which I hope is helpful. Ben, if you had any.
No, I think that was an excellent, Bill. Just to kind of hit on a few points that Bill mentioned. This project has been, I think, by all measures, extremely successful. And to give town council some context here, when we approached the town in 2017, we were optimistic about this multifamily development on which was I'm going to call it a broken office park development. And we thought that there was demand there, and we had a project that we did down in Connecticut that we thought would be a good a good mirror on this, but we had no idea how successful this would be. Today, in June of 2021, we've stopped taking a waiting list for this because there's really no opportunity for anybody. There's no point in them going on a wait list. They'll never get in. And so we're very excited about trying to expand this. We think modestly. We approached the town, Paul's right, about 6 months ago, saying, geez, we're having tremendous success here. We did option the budding property, which is the heirs of Lee Adams. Eileen Adams is a primary owner of that. And we structured an option with that. And Paul, yeah. if you
Yeah,
could
I'm just
go-
gonna pull it up for context for everybody, because I think it's
One more,
one more down.
two more.
There.
There, boom. So our original discussion, I think, was driven more from John and my perspective of we have a tremendous amount of demand. And we want to satisfy that demand. We have secured an option on the Adams parcel, which is 52 acres. And we thought, we know the town's going through a study on the growth management, the ordinance. But we do want to approach the town and let them know the demand and our interest in expanding what we think is a really successful development. So we had some discussions in the last, really over the last couple of weeks, and we did have a meeting with Jay Chase, Tom Hall, Paul Johnson, Don Hamill, to try to understand what the parameters of the town were and to bring them up to speed on the Adams option. And I think John and I came to the conclusion that we're really not ready to go forward on that piece. The demand is there, but we only have an option on that parcel, and it's going to be an expensive piece to develop. There's certainly some wetlands there, some engineering we need to do. We do own the land, which totals about, I guess it's a little under 3 acres. The two pieces, Paul, if you want to hop back and we'll talk about that for a second. Well, that's fine too. Yeah,
Right here.
that piece, and then the other piece just on the other side of the entrance, where all the, or you could go right back to the very first slide, Paul. But I think that's probably best.
This one?
Nope.
No.
Boom.
Oh, yeah.
That one. So what we've cross-hatched in the orangey with the green, there'll be a building on each parcel. The parcel on closest to Cabela's, I guess I'll call, is a little over 2 acres. What is it?
187.
1.87 acres. And then the parcel closer to the Holy Donut is 2.23 acres. That we have engineered this. This would be a similar structure to the other 12 buildings that are already at the Beacon. And if you recall, or maybe you don't recall, but we originally got permits for 12 buildings, but we only built 10 because we didn't know how strong the demand was going to be, and we didn't want to build something that might have taken longer to lease up. But while we were developing the original 10 buildings, it became clear to us that the demand was there, and we finished off buildings 11 and 12. So, if you ask what's working out there, all of it's working. We have studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, and they're all leased up. So We think the request today for an additional 2 buildings for 48 units. Our guess today, right now, is it will be the same mirror image of what the other 12 buildings are. And we know they'll be successful. Timing in a perfect world, which it isn't, but if it was, we would get approvals over the summer. We have a development group in Freeport, Maine right now, building we call it the little sister project to this. We're building 144 units in Freeport. We'd like to finish that development off, bring that crew down here and start some foundations this fall and build in the spring. And hopefully those 2 buildings could be online maybe a year from today, which would be great. And I'd love to answer some questions for you.
Sure. With that, let's go to Mr. Johnson.
Maybe you can tap Jay. This is for my education and the purposes. Why is this a contract zone initially?
Just real quick, everybody needs to speak up a little bit because we're working on one mic, so go a little bit louder than you're comfortable.
Yeah, I was thinking.
The owl, not the speaker.
Yes.
Okay, yep.
Just scream at the owl.
So the question is, why is this property part of a contract zone?
Yes.
So there's a bit of history there that was already mentioned. It goes back to before, frankly, I was working in town, which is 15 years at this point. This site and the Cabela's site are part of one grand contract zone. One side was called the Gateway Shops, and the other side, the Gateway Square, if I remember. And the square was really identified to be office space. Is that right? I think it was. Anyway, that obviously didn't come to fruition. Many years later, these folks came forward just 2, 3, maybe it's 4 years ago at this point for a contract zone amendment to enable the residential that was already described, 288 units. And there was a couple of provisions there. The Higas Parkway zone, which was referenced, does allow for some level of residential, but it needs to be in a ratio with commercial development on the property. 60% of the building area needs to be commercial. Only 40% can be residential. Here we are wholly residential. That's one. And then the other is density allowances. The Higas Parkway zone allows 5 units per acre. Frankly, I'm not sure what the acreage is here, but 288, I presume, exceeds the 5 units per acre. So those were really, if I recall, the 2 relief points from the underlying Higas Parkway zone that this iteration of the contract zone required.
Thank you. So actually, I saw in your notes you wanted relief of the mixed use.
Yes, and when we built the original 288 units, I was optimistic about commercial development, and things have taken a lot longer. I think we all know that along Higas. And Paul, if you wouldn't mind hopping back to that aerial. Sorry, you're a teacher. Come on.
Okay, fair enough.
So this would be the aerial.
So now
Go down a couple.
Might be the next one. What's the set that areas there?
So on the aerial, if you look here now, granted that Curlew piece right now has been cleared to a large degree for hopefully an Acura dealership. That may or may not come, but I hope it comes. But there has been a fair, just beyond the Curlew piece, closer to the mall. I mean, abutting there, Mark Loring has approved a retail development that he's marketed and it hasn't happened. I can't, I talked to the folks from the Cabela's. I mean, they are struggling to try to get retail tenants. So it would be great to see a vibrant mixed use. I sent a letter to the town supporting the zone change for 100 Higas LLC. for commercial development there. But we really did try to market that over the last couple of years. We want to make that land productive, but there really isn't that demand yet. This is completely self-serving, but I think the more people that we have at the Beacon, the more likelihood that you will, maybe Famous Dave's barbecue shop will become a viable restaurant. But it still, we need a little bit more action. And I am confident that retail and restaurants and things will work. But the other thing I would say about our site is it is a 3/10 of a mile from that intersection. So the idea that we're going to have like a retail, you can't see it. So it would be a struggle. So we do think that the idea of a mixed use building would never work there.
And one last new chart, you said there were 12 students, 9 new, so I'm assuming 3 already live at Scarborough, just moved over, so safe assumption, okay.
Correct.
Because I was wondering how that math worked. What's the setback on these new buildings?
Well, because it's in a Bill, you want to answer that because of the contract zone? I don't think we
Yeah,
have
I
a
mean,
setback.
that'll be part of the planning board review and approval, it's, establishing what those are. I don't know if those.
Yeah, but I mean, you're limited. Your existing development is set back pretty far. And you notice it when you drive by it, but it's off the road. This appears like it will not be off the road. It will be.
It will have a legal
right on the
setback.
two, right?
Yes, it will have a legal setback, but yes, it will certainly be visible.
Right.
They're not asking for relief from the required setback, so I think that's what they're saying is that.
Which
they'll
is
comply.
what, 20 feet? You know?
Off-
It's not much.
Offhand, it's either 25, no, we have a 25-foot landscape buffer, so I'm thinking the building setback's 50. I can pull the
Okay.
language out, but presuming they've already looked at that, they're not asking for relief,
Right.
I can do that.
I'm just trying to
offline.
gauge how close to the road it would be.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
right.
We think it's a very good looking building. I've driven around, obviously around there a lot. The architecture we think is terrific, and we think it's a really good looking project.
So why don't we just keep, once somebody has the floor, let's just same thing that Mr. Johnson did, let's just kind of let somebody have the floor until they're done. So Councilor Katarina, and then Councilor Anderson, you can have it next, okay?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what are the demographics in the buildings now? I mean, who'd you seem to be attracting? I know an real older person that lives there, and then I know some really young people that live there.
It's funny, we're attracting everybody, so we have, which is great.
Not too close. Well, you do track their dog poop.
We do attract the dog poop, and I think Paul Johnson's alluding to the fact that one of the things that we are a dog-friendly park, and we do have a DNA sampling. So when the dogs move in, we swab their mouth
Oh, really?
and they get 1 free poop. And beyond that, if we find a poop, we send it out
And you know who did it?
and we know who did it.
Oh,
So,
my God,
so
that's
yeah,
just
you don't have to
terrible.
walk with it. And we are expanding the dog park right
Oh,
now.
okay.
If anybody's been out there right now, we are expanding that. So, yeah.
I'm guessing you're not gonna recommend that as the community benefit.
Be an
But-
impact.
It is for
walkers.
So you have a good mix of all sorts of.
We have a great mix. Obviously, we don't have a lot of school-age children,
Right.
which is hard to believe because when you go over to the pool on a nice day, I think there are grandparents there with,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
kids, or I grew up in South Portland with Jean Marie, and I would have been a Scarborough resident hopping in the pool, even though I didn't live there. But what we have found is, for the most part, the 25 to 35-year-olds
Okay.
and the 50 and above.
Good.
For some reason, the 35 to 50s a little lighter, but it's not, I don't know how scientific that is, but that's kind of what our marketing people say, is that's, we're heavy on the 25 to 35s. A lot of folks have roommates now.
Yes.
So we're also finding that the idea that somebody could be in a 2 or 3 bedroom, they might be a single person that's renting, maybe they're working from home now, or maybe they're having a adult child or something, but
Right,
it's everything's successful. Yeah, I mean, we couldn't be happier with what we're seeing.
good. And the reason, because you originally were talking quite a few more apartments. But now you've cut it back. Is there a particular reason for cutting back the number? Is there some sort of trend going on here?
I would love to say, and I'm optimistic. I mean, we do have an option on the Adams piece.
Right.
And I want to come back. We do own this parcel. We want to get that up and running. But we will come back, I hope, come back. We will probably do a different product type on the Adams piece. So these will be 12 buildings that look essentially the same. And I think for the Adams piece, we may want to take a look at something different. It will give us more time to study the parcel. We got some wetlands issues. I think there are going to be some real discussions about what's right for the town, what's right for that particular piece of land. And one of the things we're learning from these tenants that really want to stay here is maybe they want something different if they get older or when they get older. So I think it's exciting to have this piece. We're going to come back, I think, and we'll have a different discussion today. We can't really consider doing that project. Originally, we came in to talk to Tom Hall and Jay, and we always said that we can't do anything on Adams until we deal with the 2 land parcels on Hygus. If we're successful here, that should give us the ability to go forward on Adams. But they are, one of the things as a developer, it's so difficult right now to get people that I really need to harness the architects and the construction folks. It's so hard to get people to work. And, I think you'll start to learn about, as we talk about further growth right now, those 2 buildings to build will be easily 35% more expensive to build than the exact same building 24 months ago. Labor, materials, everything. So that will impact what we want to do going forward.
And because my other question is, what's the price point right now for the rent?
The price points, and I think the easiest way to think about it is on a monthly basis, if you took square footage. So let's say you knew a unit was 800 square feet. You think about $2 a foot. So that would be $1,600 a month. We're in that ballpark. Rents are obviously a little higher for the studios than they are the 3 bedrooms, but we market this as a luxury product. That I think is more of a marketing word, because our rents, even though we have tremendous amenities of the pool, the clubhouse, the dog park, the gym, we are honestly right in the same rental park. We're actually cheaper than Red Bank in South Portland on a per square foot basis. So I don't really want to put this out for public consumption because it's our internal notes, but we have.
You're on public camera.
Well.
Then remember, speak to the owl.
We have all the rental products in Cumberland
Right,
County,
sure.
and we're right in the.
I was gonna say, you're right in the middle.
Right in
from
the
what I
sweet-
understand.
Right in the sweet spot on that.
Right.
One of the things that I think speaks to us, the success of this is usually have X number of people move out after a year. We sign 1-year leases and people aren't moving out. So
Right.
that's another indication that we'd like to get at least 2 more buildings here.
Right, and the reason I ask is, as you guys know, I'm in real estate. And there's a shortage right now of housing available just across the board. So I can see why people aren't moving from your apartments, because if they get in, they ain't going anywhere, at least not right now. I'm just looking down the line, and I'm not talking about this particular one, but your Adams parcel. I'm real big, as you, I'm sure you know, and have heard on workforce, so-called workforce housing are making some living arrangements for folks who, you know, they're not super wealthy, they're the working class, middle class, and they're having a really hard time getting into anything right now. Now that could change, and I'm not asking you to make any commitments, but I'm just wanting to put that out there. That as you're looking, because we're saying you want a different model in this Adams section.
Right.
You know, I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Right, and, you know, we are not affordable housing developers.
Right.
What I would say, and again, self-serving, and I think this goes through not just in Scarborough, but Greater Portland, everybody is at high occupancy. And that will change eventually, I think we all know that, but today everybody's at high occupancy. There is a supply and demand problem in this area, and the more supply is out there, obviously the rents are gonna go down.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm just putting a plug in.
yeah, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you.
Okay, that's it, I'm done.
Councilor Anderson's gonna have the floor to exhaustion, and then Betsy, Councilor Geisling.
I will support Jean Marie's plug first. But can you guys talk a little bit about where the demand is? Like, do you guys have the details to know between your studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, where are you seeing the most demand today in terms of requests coming in?
It's literally, if anything's available, it leases. There is demand for all of it, all of it. I can't say that only 2 bedrooms are leasing. It is studios, 1, 2s, and 3s. Yeah, probably the 1 bedrooms are probably, and the 2 bedrooms are probably the most demand, but honestly, if there's a vacancy right now, it will go like that.
Okay. So we have a pretty big pipeline, I think, of multi-family unit projects coming or being planned and approved zone areas. I guess my question is what makes your guys' project unique, or would you say distinguishes it from some of the other projects that are going to be happening in Scarborough? You know, especially knowing that this demand that we have for multifamily unit housing is pretty high. Like Jean Marie mentioned, workforce housing is high, affordable housing is high, you know, just, you know, market-based housing is high. And I think we're going to get a lot of people who want to go down that route. And so I'm just curious to hear why this project, what makes it unique?
Well, I think a proven track record, number one, and the evidence of the demand for our product and the location of it as well. I think it's easy access on and off to the turnpike and whatnot. But I think the overall experience of the project attracts those people.
I would just add to John's point, I think it's really enhancing and leveraging the existing infrastructure that's already built out there, the existing development that's already there. So it really is just the third phase of what's already.
And I think Councillor Hamel kind of alluded to it earlier in one of his comments, but you know, as this moves forward, you know, I don't know if this was something you guys had to do prior, if what Councillor Hamel and Chairman Johnson put together with, you know, needing to provide the rationale for the public benefit is something new that you'll have to address. But can you talk a little bit more about what you see as the primary public benefit for these 48 units?
I'm trying to think back on what the original discussion was, and it's only been 4 years, but as I recall, part of that original discussion was, you know, what amenities are going to be provided, what's there that's going to address the needs of the residents. And I think that's where the clubhouse and the pool, and the dog park and the trails and things of that nature address that. I don't know if that answers your question fully, but as I recall, that was the part of the conversation in the original approval. And those same amenities are going to continue to support these additional residents.
That seems to benefit the, the residents, but in terms of the benefits to the town and other residents outside of the Beacon, what is going to be the public benefit to Scarborough?
I think
Certainly
frankly,
the,
it was the impact
the
fees.
impact fees.
I think that's the second part of that conversation. Is the first part is what were we doing to address the needs of the residents there? Sort of keeping them happy and on site, and maybe doing some of the same things that a homeowner would do. I guess if we have a pool or clubhouse. And then the other aspect of that is really just that it was a monetary benefit going to the town for I think the impact fees were upwards of $2 million on the project. So I think there's a significant flow of funds to the town that the various town funds, I think, should break down on that, one of those slides as to which funds those went to for town purposes.
More specifically, there are certain impact fees that are required, would be required of the project due to existing ordinances. I think what was unique to the last contract zone approval was the affordable housing fund. That's not necessarily required. It was negotiated as part of the contract zone amendment, and also a bus shelter initiative. So advancing public transit and affordable housing. There's another public benefit opportunity I did want to put on the table. That hopefully is an easy lift, but I think it's a newfound interest on the town's part. The town's been very involved with the Downs and them getting their traffic movement permit. One of the pieces in that conversation that came up late in the game just last month was the requirement for the Downs to build a pedestrian connection from their project, because they're going to come out on Center Street to Higas Parkway up to the Cabela's retail complex. The thought is, and frankly, I go on the Parkway all the time, there's far more pedestrian traffic today than there was a year ago, certainly more than 2 years ago. And we can only expect that that will increase. And vice versa, residents from the Beacon will presumably want to work their way into the Downs. And so that was kind of a late conversation. It makes some intuitive sense. One of the thoughts is it really doesn't make sense to pull pedestrian traffic all the way up to the exit 42 intersection with Higas Parkway. So if we could obtain a public easement through your property on your existing sidewalk system, that will allow the public to gain access in a safer, more direct way. That would be something we'd love to talk to you about again. It's really using the existing infrastructure that we have and having the public's access and use rights.
Would that come up more in the planning board?
No, I think I would suggest that it become a condition of the contract zone. The planning board will certainly talk to you about building infrastructure on your site and perhaps off-site. But this is to allow the public the legal right to be able to walk in your sidewalks. I mean, frankly, they would do today. I don't think anyone would necessarily stop them, but I think it makes sense for us to secure the public's right to make certain that's the case.
And something of that nature is typically within a setback. It's an easement, so it's not.
Yeah, it would be internal throughout your property from Higas Parkway through, and there's probably a very direct route that we can talk about that makes the most sense. So they don't need to get internal access, but kind of to use your property to get through safely to the intersection at Bay Road.
You mean like a pathway?
There's
already existing,
there's
but
existing
it'll be, that'll be public along X amount of route, not necessarily the whole.
Yeah, all of those
Property.
public improvements, sidewalk, streets are all private at this point.
Right,
And again, I want signs that say public not welcome.
right.
But I think it makes sense. We have an opportunity, we have a need to really formalize that.
So you're thinking more internal. I was, when
Internal.
you first mentioned that, I was thinking along Higas, specific for this project.
Yeah, one of the images, I think they have called.
I already started.
I
I
think it
saw it
was
coming.
sort of connecting the dots at your driveway access at
It's really the
Higas
first one
Parkway
called.
and the driveway access up at Payne Road.
I say through the project.
Through
So-
that main drag, I can't remember what the name of the.
So here I am walking.
Yeah.
Here's my cursor. I'm
Yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
Now, normally I'd walk down Higas in that nasty intersection right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
But I believe what they're saying is, hey, I don't want to go to the Turnpike intersection to go to Cabela's. I'm going to go, oh, this is still me walking. And I'm walking now to a much
So you have-
safer intersection over here.
and we can talk about further details. I just want to put it on the table. It's
Yeah,
just
no,
kind of-
I just digesting that, it seems to make sense. I don't know, insurance and financing and all that stuff, but I understand the request.
Let's bring it back to John, Mr. Anderson. Anderson, you still have the floor, so I just want to, but that was good. Continue.
No, thank you, Tom, and thank you guys. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, the other thing I would say is I've also talked to some folks from Trust for Public Land and in conservation groups, and I'm working with folks all the way down to Eight Corners. I know them well and would like to contribute to whatever land that we want to put into conservation down the road. We certainly are open to, for the most part, they usually don't want the land because they don't find it appealing to the public unless it has real value, but we're certainly amenable to any of those discussions and always have been.
That would be great.
Council Geisling, the floor is yours.
So what's the mix for the 48 units between studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
Betsy, hold on. I gotta turn you up or you need to, you're very, very low.
Do you want me to try again?
Yeah, just because I'm at 100%, Betsy, so I don't, yeah, sorry. Yeah, can you start again? Yeah.
So what's the mix of studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom in the 48, the new 48?
There's 8 of each in each building. Does that make sense?
Full type stuff, right?
4,
And is that what the other buildings have too? Is that the way that it works?
6 of each. 6 of each.
Yeah.
Paul's a math teacher. 6,
And is that what's in the other buildings too?
correct.
Okay, so it's the same as what you already did. And do those units have sprinklers? Sprinkler
Yes.
systems? Okay. And see, my other question was for Tom and Jay. So can you refresh my memory about that area? You know, Jay, you mentioned the Cabela's, the whole area there, which I think at one point was called Enterprise or something. And there was a TIF there, a CEA there. How does that work? What's in place there at that, you know, for where we did all those and where the original developer did all those improvements to the intersection? What is that? What's covered in that? And when is that expiring in that area?
Well, there is a TIF that covers a much larger geographic area, essentially along the Higas Parkway, including this area. Then there's a credit enhancement agreement that applies to what was formerly known as Gateway Shops, where Cabela's is, and what was formerly known as Gateway Square, which is where the Beacon is now. That credit enhancement agreement has about a year and a half or so left on it. And I say that there's certain parameters, including total payout, and we'll reach total payout before the actual expiration. So that will be exhausted by our analysis in about a year and a half's time frame.
And so the property tax mentioned earlier in that presentation, the 600 or whatever, is that gets paid now outside of the CEA, or that doesn't get paid until the CEA expires?
Correct. It's 100% CEA, so it all goes to the beneficiaries of the CEA. Incidentally, these gentlemen, I believe, are 15% beneficiaries, whereas the original developer of the Gateway Shops reaps 85% of that benefit. That's a private deal that they negotiated. But currently, until we reach those limits, it's 100% reimbursement. Again, the good news is the end is in sight very, very soon.
Right. So the new units would come in under property tax, would be assessed, and we'd actually get property tax for the new units?
I believe we will, because not only is there a total upset limit of 8.25 million in reimbursement, which is what I believe we'll reach in about a year's and a half time. There's also an annual limit of 825,000, and I believe the full value of these may put us over that annual limit. So there'll be some portion, I suspect, when this becomes full value that will flow back to us. Very small portion, mind you, but I believe because of the 825,000 annual limit, I believe some will flow to the general fund.
But then when it expires, we expect to get the entire tax amount shown on the screen. Right?
I think we first have to deal with the Higas Parkway sewer assessment or sewer fees. Right now, the town has been paying all the bond expenses, and this is a matter that perhaps finance can get into in better detail. And there have not been sufficient proceeds from the TIF district to cover that those bond costs. So the general fund has been carrying that. I think we're in the order of about $2.5 million that need to be reimbursed to the general fund. So my understanding is that would be the next payee, if you will, and then it would ultimately start flowing to the general fund and restricted.
Okay, but it's sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Because the general fund is paying off the TIF right now for the Higas Parkway. We're just saying that this money would go into that, but the CEA would be expired for all of that property within about a year and a half.
I believe that's our analysis suggests it's about that frame.
Pretty soon. So is there another request? Is there going to be another request for a CEA?
Not to my knowledge. Not certainly part of this project.
Do you guys want to just confirm that? Just so.
Never thought of it.
Well, don't.
Well, you're handing them out.
It's a weather issue.
So once this expires, at this point, there's not going to be a request for another CEA for the beacon, is what you said. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that well because I'm on the remote. Is that what you said, Ben?
I didn't hear your question.
But once the CEA
No request.
Yeah.
We inherited the
Right.
credit enhancement agreement before, and it's a long story, but we had to pay for the privilege of getting it. So, that was somebody else's sin, not ours.
You're done with that. Okay, great. And I think this question might be for Councilor Clucci. John, what do we typically use as an estimate for a cost per student for taxpayers? Is it 15,000? Is it 13,000?
We're closer to 17.5.
So
that's the gross cost. There's some subsidy from the state and other
Right.
sources that drive that down.
right. So yeah, with the subsidies, maybe it's more like around 15K was kind of the number I was using. So
Sure.
it's not a lot of students. At 14 students at 15K, that's somewhere around 210,000. So it's students are great. So I'm all for that. But the costs do add up when you have students. So that was, I think, let me just flip through. Yeah, so I don't know, Paul, could you bring that that one slide up again? I just want to make sure I understand because I'm just
Yep. Which one is it? The students one you're referring?
the ones with the numbers of what they've paid so far. Yeah, that. Okay.
Yep.
So part, the benefits to the town, clearly they paid a lot of impact fees when they built the original units. The property taxes we haven't had yet. Is that correct? Based on the CEA?
They've not come to benefit the general fund. They've pursuant to the CEA, they're being reimbursed fully back to the project.
Okay. And then we do, of course, the excise tax. Is that based on number of cars in the parking lot or number of cars you have registered? Do your residents register their cars or?
The latter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on the floor next? Councilor Clucci.
Yeah, first, thank you for coming. I actually like this project. I enjoy driving through it occasionally, and I think it's a a great addition to the neighborhood. I think when we initially envisioned Hagus, the thought of all commercial, it didn't work for a reason. You need people for some of that to take hold, and I guess this is gonna help spur some of that. I have some slight concerns with the buildings going on Hagus, not usual. I couldn't tell from the picture, were you connecting, having a separate curb cut into the parkway, or you're gonna follow your existing?
The existing curb cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. The traffic assessment that you did, I know it's just one day in time, and I wonder if the pandemic's maybe skewing that a little bit low, although you're just a month ago now.
It was a month ago in March. Yeah, we had a traffic engineer do it. I mean, it is about what I thought it would be.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
We envisioned doing more too. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
preliminary.
That was
So we're gonna get some
preliminary.
more.
We'll do
updates.
more,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our problem for the workshop
Yeah.
more than anything.
Who's doing the traffic?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
It's good news anyways. The other question, it might be for staff down the road, but the affordable house, a big part of the public benefit, like Tom said earlier to me, is putting money aside towards affordable housing. And I know that you don't develop that yourself, but I think as we bring on more higher end units, it's important to balance that out to some extent. And I know that the cost that you have in the estimate here was probably based on what you paid the last time. And I think that's gonna have to be recalculated. I don't know which way it's gonna go, but I think they typically look at the bonus density. Or maybe Jake can.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, as you were just saying, Councilor Cuccia, the affordable housing bonus in lieu payment used to be, I think it was $20,000 per unit, and is now $50,000 per unit. I don't recall how the number, it's like $2,400, $13. There was some mathematical equation that got to from 20,000 down to that 2,000 whatever number. So offhand, I don't recall how we arrived at that number previously. I'm not sure if Tom.
I do.
Okay.
The requirement in the Downs and elsewhere, or in the Downs is 10% affordable. So for all new units, at least 10% must be affordable. So we use that same standard here. So using the 288 as the number of units, let's say that would require a 10%, 28 affordable units. And so we actually worked it down to a per unit fee, which is easier for us to administer through the building permit process. And I believe what they're proposing is to simply carry that forward on the same terms as the original.
And if I'm sorry, I know this is your time, but I just wanted to interject that I'm talking about workforce housing. I'm not talking about affordable housing. I'm talking about, the next level up for people. And I'm hoping, I've been talking to a number of legislators, is like we have bonds for senior housing. It'd be nice to have bonds for workforce housing too, at some point. But I just want to make sure people are clear on that, because the minute I say workforce, all of a sudden it starts turning into affordable again.
So I will say this notion of workforce, and Chief Marie, you've been a great advocate of that, right? Congratulate you with that, but it's a new concept vis-a-vis our local ordinances. So affordable is ordained, if you will. We need to do some catch-up work with our ordinances to introduce the workforce component. It has a different definition, arguably. The initiative fund, where these monies go to, is totally within your control. So you could expand the use and purpose of those funds. Right now, it's specifically affordable, but again, it's within your control to expand that into something else if you wish.
Yeah, so I guess the point is, I think that's where the public benefit's gonna come from. But aside from helping to spur economic development in that area. And I think there's appetite for that. We can work out the details of whether it goes to the Housing Alliance, we change their scope, or how it gets applied. But I think the general gist is that we think it's important to balance out high-end development with more affordable developments as well. And you clearly supported the 700,000 into the fund with your first batch. So that's all I have for questions.
Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, I have one question. It was the same timing as everything. So, as you well know, we just completed going through a process of revising our growth management ordinance. There was a lot of discussion about that piece, and growth and development, type development mix and so forth. So can you help, Ben, you made a comment about your desired start date. You want to possibly break some ground this calendar year, but the actual construction would start next year. So is that what you're?
We'd like to get the foundations in before the batch plants close. So get the foundations in this fall. Whatever work we can do over the winter, we do. It really depends on what we can get done. But I would love to, I'd love to be in a position where we could lease those a year from today.
I was just gonna mention, I believe as part of the original contract zone, this project, the units were exempted. I don't believe, did you have to, I guess I'd have to look back at the data. I think as the council action either exempted or enabled to pull from the reserve pool. It was the reserve pool. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. I guess that's.
Don't ever speak of the reserve.
Well, I guess where I was gonna head with that is with the recently repealed, enacted GMO, maybe you were headed here as well, Councilor Hamel is. There is opportunity for the council to have those room for that discussion as part of the contract zone discussion. If that's.
So they wouldn't count against permits for this
That's at the
year.
council's discretion through this process. I think if I remember the exemptions of the new ordinance, which I again have over there, but.
Yeah, I would think the amendment would need to have a recital of that
Yep.
because the council is granting the exemption of the required permits.
Right.
I think it's a matter of timing, just so the audience appreciates. We don't differentiate between a foundation permit and a building permit. They're kind of one and the same. So for them to, it's helpful for them to say, we can appreciate what the impact is on us. Foundation doesn't break people. It's the actual, building itself and finishes. But as a practical matter, if what they need is a foundation as soon as this fall, we'll be issuing, they need a building permit from us. So they effectively will need to pull those growth permits and activate them this year. That's what that effectively means.
Or they make, they're exempted, then they wouldn't actually be pulling growth permits, they'd just be getting their building permit again. Now we're
But
way
we,
in the semantics.
but
I'm
we can
sorry,
be clear
my
with the
bad.
public about why, why there are no, permits in this case. We would go through that discussion as
Yes.
part of our series of steps and process. So I just want to, try to set expectations for that without letting any cats out of the bag or dogs for that matter.
Well, we've been asked to track this and report out, and part of that reporting includes exemptions.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah,
I just want to be
absolutely.
clear
Yeah.
that it doesn't just kind of go off in the ether.
Yes.
We're going to be carrying these along, and so they'll be counted in the 2021 calendar year.
Yeah.
I guess is
And remember,
the
there
simpler
are
way to
10
put it.
exemptions for workforce housing.
I'm keeping track.
Anything else?
6 references.
So we're gonna wrap this up at 6:45 because we have 10 minutes because I have to take care of the technical issues before the big
Yeah.
show. So,
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Do any of your residents use public transit right now? And are you doing anything to promote them doing so?
That's
That's people will have that answer.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a good question.
Yeah.
Good.
We have the bus shelter initiative.
But it's an initiative. It's not a bell shelter. Just to be clear, it's just an initiative. Can you sit in this initiative or can you?
There's the math teacher comment.
Right, he started. And going back to Betsy's conversations, I think this gets lost a little bit. Tom, the CEA for Hikes Parkway is unique in the sense that it's not based on, it is based on capture value, but it also has this, it has a floor to it, meaning we owed 8.25 million,
Right,
whether this thing laid an egg or not.
right.
And so this is kind of a different animal, whereas if we had it, other CEAs can be structured in the sense of if there's no capture value, there's no CEA. So I feel like the Hikes Parkway, it coming offline, so to speak, is going to be will be a big positive for the town, right? Because most CAs are, yes, this is off capture value. However, it needs to reach 8.25 million.
Yeah, I wasn't here, but I don't believe that 825 had anything to do with our sewer, our debt necessarily. I think it had to do with.
But we're paying them that no matter what.
A discussion with the developer, and it helped offset infrastructure expense, I presume.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's just it's a rough deal, so to speak, the way it's structured.
What I will say is the 60 million dollar in value that this project has brought to
Sure.
that project has accelerated exponentially.
Yeah.
you know, there was original impact with the development of Cabela's, but it really hasn't progressed beyond that. In fact, just as an aside, it was the first time in my professional career in this business that I've had a taxpayer want their value higher than what the assessor had it at, because it was 100% credit enhancement agreement, and their tenants were paying their taxes, so triple net leases. And so what was very helpful is having this project. It is exponentially propelled the performance of that, such that we're going to have it fulfilled before the expiration date.
Do you guys think the, just going back to the 2000, was it 17 or 2007 traffic permit, right? Do you think that that's underperforming? It's mostly because of the Cabela's Plaza, not so much your, because that's one permit, correct? That's one Department of Transportation permit for that area. So that underperformance is probably more due to Cabela's not doing as well as projected.
I also think people predicted the highest just to totally take off.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that whole area, yeah, okay. Councilor Johnson, you're gonna get the last word, so I'm gonna end it after your.
Okay, I'm gonna be gentle. I just want to remind my fellow councilors that our GMO is managing growth and not permits, so it doesn't matter whether these are exempt or not exempt. This will come on top of the year that we've already done 300 new homes. Add 48 to that. I don't care about the permits, but let me ask, do you happen to know, Jay, out of the 48 that we allocated that will expire at the end of this year, how many of those have been used? Do you have any idea, rough?
So I don't believe any have been converted to building permits yet, but they will all be
Okay, so
utilized by the end of the year.
So
We,
somebody wants this.
so I'm trying to get the final numbers to send an email to council, but we had roughly 80 folks on the, what I'll call the wait list. That number, now that things have become activated, we reached out. We actually had a number of people fall off the wait list or said, oh, as I sort of said before, I think we had a run on the bank and a number of people like, oh gosh, actually, I don't really want a permit this year. I was just putting my name on the list. So a whole bunch fell off, and as of my last count this afternoon, we were down to 50 folks who were on the list.
So
they're all pretty much going to be taken care of with other exemptions and such. So I just wanted to have, anyway.
So I'll leave it with that. Ben, I'm gonna ask you a favor. I want you to really either slow the guys down in Freeport or come up with other things to do down here so we can stave this off the next year. That's my final say, but I'm only one person. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Just last thing on process, the council may recall, you changed your process for contract zone amendments, so it is aligned with the more rigorous process of the original contract zone, and I believe what's been represented in the final slide does reflect that. So it's intentionally and purposely very rigorous in terms of public involvement.
So this is what we do, since Councilor Johnson took liberties to express some sort of opinion or some sort of directive to the developers, now we all need to do that. So with that, let's all get 2 minutes if you want, I'm being funny, but I'm also being serious. So if you take 2 minutes, if you want to give your initial feedback, I think that's probably important. That's why they're here. So I'm gonna go with Councilor Anderson, and we'll just go around the horn and then we'll call it right after that. So 2 minutes to just kind of give them your initial thoughts and your instincts. Nothing's binding, but I think that's, we just spent an hour and a half to do this, that they want to hear it. So Councilor Anderson, you first, and then we'll go along I'll go to Councilor Gladstein and then around the table.
Yeah, I think for me, this seems like a good project. I think I'm more interested in hearing a little bit more about the public benefit, whether that's through additional affordable housing contributions or something related to workforce, or even something related to the environment. A lot of the fees are great, but those are required, as I understand it, for most projects. So any project similar in nature would have to pay similar fees. So I would just encourage you guys to think a little bit more about the public benefit and look at Appendix A in our zoning ordinance to see if there's other ways you can help justify how this project is going to be unique and benefit Scarborough overall.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Councilor Gladstein?
I concur with Councilor Johnson.
Perfect. Councilor Pucci?
Yeah, I like the project. I'd like to see it move forward. Also, going to be focused mostly on the public benefit. I like the concept Tom explained about cutting off the access to the downs around your property and using that to get to Cabela's, and then you could use that to get to the downs. I think that's worth understanding a little bit better. And then formalizing what the in lieu fees might be for this type of project.
Councilor Caterina?
Let me guess.
Workforce housing. No, I support this. I'm a big believer in let's build out. When we said we were gonna build out, we need housing, in this area. And I will be interested in seeing what we can work out for some sort of public benefit.
Yeah, and I think I'll split the difference between Councilor Anderson and Councilor Johnson. If we're going to, if you take what Councilor Johnson said, if we're going to deviate from that, then we should have a pretty darn good reason to say, what did we get in return? Right? And so I strongly echo what Councilor Anderson said. It will be easy. I want to be able to say, yes, we did this, but because we got this. And so that would be.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I want to thank John and Don and Bill for coming to meet with us again. They're known quantity, okay, and I think their work speaks for itself. That we've been involved with them in other projects that may still be pending. So, it's good to have them and to know their work. They've left their mark on the community in a number of ways. I think they're very thoughtful in terms of how they're approaching this, and also measured in terms of the pace as well. I think they're kind of hearing what people are saying in town. You've heard what everyone had to say at the public benefit. Some other suggestions that I've heard recently included things like open space. You've heard the connectivity arguments and so forth. So hopefully those would be things that would be fairly easy for them to, come up with suggestions. So I don't want to preempt the process, but I'm glad we had an extra step to try to, reset things and get it back on track. So I look forward to the other stuff. So thank you.
Okay, with that, Councilor Anderson, are you going to jump in the car? Are you coming up?
I might stick here for the next one.
There's a different Zoom link for both of you, so I'm going to close this. Okay, and then I'll
Okay.
see you in the new Zoom in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.